What up, Paul?
What's going on, Alex? How are you?
Are you awake right now?
Getting there.
Everybody, this is Paul, CEO of Discount Lots. But before we get into it, I have a disclosure. Paul's a very close friend of mine, so this might get crazy very fast, and we'll keep it fun. You ready?
Let's do it.
Cool. So before we get into the business world, I always like to start with like the personal world. I know you, but the world doesn't. You grew up in Chicago, went to the great University of Iowa. Then what happened?
Then took a job out of college. I was doing sales at a scrap metal recycling company, and I got fired in the first 3 months. I was unemployable. And then I was like, what do I do now? And then I found another job. This is 2014. Found another job doing pharmaceutical sales. Remote
sales.
Yeah, remote. So I had a remote job like 11 years ago before like remote work was a thing. So I was like, everyone was like, what do you mean you work from home? Like, because no one did that before COVID. So I was on the road like all the time. And in my free time, I was trying to figure out like, I'm in my car for hours and hours a day. And I was trying to figure out like, okay, I can sit here and listen to music, or I can do something better with this time that I have. I was driving like over 100 miles a day. That's also why I hate driving now. I literally hate driving. But so I started listening to podcasts, and I found out about Amazon e-commerce. So my first business before I got into real estate was Amazon e-commerce. And there was this guy who put out a podcast, and it was like A to Z, how to start your Amazon business. And I listened to it day, night. Like I would walk into customers, and then I had to go it was a really weird job, like a very interesting job. Like I used to go to like the Pentagon, I'd go to like all these military bases and stuff. That's a whole nother story. But the point is that with that remote job, I was able to learn about a business, and then I started that business all by listening to a podcast. And so that's kind of my origin story of how I became an entrepreneur.
Cool. So let's get back into it. So before we get more into the business world, what do you do for fun outside of buying land?
I like to go to music festivals with Alex. I like to listen to a lot of music. I play a lot of tennis, weightlifting, and water sports. So I love riding jet skis, wake surfing, and living on the water in Florida is a very amazing lifestyle.
Trick question. If you could have a drink or a beer with anybody in the world, dead or alive, who would that be?
Oh man, no one's ever asked me that question, so I gotta have
fun one.
Damn.
It can be weird. It can be fun. Who would it be? We're gonna cut all this out. So
yeah, I actually got to think about it. I've never been asked that question. Who would you have a drink with?
Justin Timberlake. 1, 2, Genghis Khan. That's crazy how that sounds. I just finished the biography. It was awesome. Yeah, and I think JT's my boy. That's what I would do. I think it'd just be fun. Now, Puff Daddy. Okay. Nappy did it.
Hitler.
No, we're not putting that. You're Jewish. We're not. Second to final question. If you could have a drink with anybody in the world, any point in the history of the earth, who would it be with? It can't be me. We already do that.
Thomas Edison.
Okay, way to go back. All right.
And I would bring an iPhone with me. and then come back to time now, and then I would see what the world would be like if Thomas Edison had a charger and an iPhone, and then see how different the world would be.
There you go. All right, Thomas Edison. So now on the business side of things, from 100,000 foot view, let's say you were talking to my 7-year-old. Describe Discount Lots. What do you guys do?
So we're a real estate investment firm where we buy land all across the country, and then we sell it on an online platform that we built where people can come there and buy a piece of land, vacant land all across the country with a credit card. So it's consumers, they can buy a piece of land. It's as easy as Amazon to buy land online.
Who's your core customer today?
Our core customers are everyday Americans that otherwise may not have the opportunity to own a piece of real estate, to own an investment. Because when you think about it, you can come and buy a piece of land for about $350 a month. And for the average American, they don't own a home, they don't own a car, and they're paying rent. And so if they have bad credit, if they have good credit, it's still very hard to go and buy a home right now. We make it super simple and easy and put them on a path towards ownership, a real asset.
And then over the last couple of years, the economy has kind of gone all over the place, interest rates all over the place. What challenges, specifically in your world of buying and selling land, has the world changed at all? Are there any challenges that you faced?
I would say honestly, knock on wood, it's been very consistent, if not growing. As homeownership has become more and more unaffordable, people are looking towards alternative living styles, alternative investments. So a lot of our customers will buy a piece of land and they'll put an RV out there, or they'll put a tiny home, or that's their future plans for the piece of land. So I would say it's actually helped our business, and it's gained more attention because we're offering an alternative to the difficulty of purchasing a home, as everyone knows, with these sky-high interest rates.
Where in the U.S. do you guys do this right now?
So we do a lot of business in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and then Texas and California, Nevada, Arizona is kind of where we go. So far West Coast and then kind of mid-Atlantic region.
And price points, what does that look like?
Yeah, so our average property is about $25,000. So when you break it down into a payment plan, it's only about $350 a month.
Cool. And then what do you if you were to look at it from a very big, high perspective, what are the company superpowers? What are you guys the best at?
So I would say we're the very best at acquiring land. We're really good at finding assets and getting them at great prices, and then providing a great product on the back end. And we're fulfilling a blank space in the market where there's typically not financing to buy land. So we're kind of filling that space.
So why the hell do you like land so much? You have a different perspective than a lot of the real estate folk, right? So like, what is the thing about land that gets you excited?
And it's funny you asked that question, because just in the last year, I've been on the road way more than I've ever have. I've been going out into the countryside in Georgia and Tennessee, and it's a ton of fun riding around on four-wheelers and being like, I own this piece of land. And land is just super interesting because it's a blank canvas, right? Versus an apartment building is like, okay, it's an apartment building. Maybe we can make it a little bit nicer or whatever it is. When you have a piece of land, it could be anything you can dream of, or it could just be a piece of land where you go and hang out and you just use it, right? So I just love that there's infinite possibilities.
And then as to like looking at deals with technology today and all that, like what's your secret sauce? You don't have to know the secret sauce, but like what's your perspective of finding deals all over the country?
I would say our secret sauce is honestly just the amount of deals that we've looked at, because we've done so many transactions versus other real estate classes. Okay, maybe you're going to buy 100 homes in a year or 50 homes in a year. We buy over 1,000 properties in a year because the price points are much lower. So the amount of repetitions that we have done, I probably looked at 100,000 pieces of land, like underwrote them. And so I would just say that we've just done it so many times, time and time again, and we've made the mistakes, and we just know what to look for at this point.
So from the underwriting angle, right? What's the process look like? You've done it so many times. Like if someone's looking at this for the first time and looking at a piece of land, you might have some expenses, but you don't have the income. So how do you guys look at land? Is it appreciation? Walk us through how you underwrite a piece of land.
Yeah, I mean, so what we're looking at is, okay, there's no secret sauce here. We're going to Zillow and we're looking at, okay, we have a 5-acre piece of land in California in the desert. Simple. We're going to Zillow and we're saying, all right, on the market, there's properties that are the same size, with the same characteristics, with the same utility situation, with the same sort of roads. And we're saying, okay, they're on the market for this. They're selling for this. This is the average amount of time that they're on market. And then we're just underwriting from there of saying, okay, how much are you willing to pay? And then making sure that we're getting it well below the lowest price thing on the market, so we have tons of room. And that's really as simple as it is we're just looking at market trends and prices. And then on top of that, through our proprietary platform that we've built, we know that we can command certain prices for certain assets that other people might not be able to, because we already have the built-in demand of people that want to buy a piece of property with a payment plan. So we kind of are also able to dictate some of the pricing differently from the market. We're essentially market makers to an extent.
No, it makes sense. So is the hard thing at that point then the negotiations with the sellers, or actually striking a price, or is it financing, or what is it from the acquisition side?
I would say just from the acquisition side, this business has gotten a lot more competitive in the last, when I started 6 years ago, you could buy as much unlimited amounts of property and get unbelievable deals. In the last few years, as house wholesaling, house flipping, multifamily, as all these other asset classes started to get difficult with the market changing, there's a lot of people that are starting to come into this industry. And so it's definitely gotten a lot more competitive, and we've had to change and adapt and kind of, everyone's going this way, we got to go a little bit that way.
And we'll talk about where you're going later, but you still need the cash to be able to acquire the land. Are people forming different financing structures? Is there debt for that? Like, can they get hard money? Is it bridge loans? Like,
you're talking about like other people in the land.
Oh yeah, people who are acquiring, how are they coming up with the money to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. A lot of people are trying to like do land wholesaling. That's kind of a big thing. Land is very capital intensive business where there's not a lot of
cash flow.
There's well, you don't have cash flow, but there aren't. You off the street wanted to go and get financing for a piece of land, and especially if you wanted to present it as an investment, good luck.
Good luck going to a bank for sure.
Yeah. So one of the things is that like for someone trying to get into this, and I wish someone told me this when I started, it's probably the least financeable asset in the whole world. It's easier to go. I don't know if I can say this, but it's easy.
Tell me, you can say a strip club. It's okay.
No. It's easier to go get a unsecured loan to get a breast enlargement than it is to go get financing for a piece of land. There are 100 people that will give you financing right now, unsecured loan for that boob job. But if you want to go get financing for a piece of land, oh well, maybe we'll give you like 30 or 40% LTV and all these things. And so that's just how the industry is.
So yeah, seems like there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
So let's flip it from the customer perspective. So the customer journey. So how do they find you, and then how does the transaction work from a customer's angle?
Sure. So we have like a lot of different customer segments. So I'll just kind of talk about our main customer, which is through the Discount Lots channel through our platform, because we also have a wholesale business and we also do large timber tracts and stuff like that. They're all different audiences. So we've built brands for different audiences. And so Discount Lots, everyone's found online, right? So they're going to Google, they're on Facebook, they're on YouTube. We do a ton of content and we've really grown our SEO. So we have a lot of traffic coming to our website, but someone will fill out a form and they will tell us what type of land they're looking for, what they're trying to do with the land, and then they'll get a call from one of our salespeople and we will walk them through and say, okay, what's your vision for the piece of land? Where do you want to be? How far are you willing to go from where you're currently located? And it's like a white glove service where they will take them through and give them a few options. The customer will then drive out to the property. They like the property. It's as simple as them putting $500 on their credit card, secures the property. And then from there, their card gets charged monthly. And while they're making the monthly payments, they can go out there and go camping or hang out at the land. Like they're not legally allowed to go and build a home on it like on day one, and no one's going to give them a construction loan to do that. That's kind of the process. And within there, we have our own internal customer service collections team. So we're not just a real estate firm. We're also like a specialty finance business and collections aid. Like we're all these things in one on an online platform.
Cool. How long does it usually take for someone to pay us off? Like what is average?
So our average term length's around 72 months, but I would say at least probably 20% at a minimum will pay off early, but it's about 72 months is our average term length, which is 6 years.
On like the market insights level. So for new acquisitions, if Paul was to pick his favorite states, what states are you excited about? Is there any better regulation anywhere? Any better financing anywhere? Any better migration patterns? Like, what do you like? What states?
I really, really like Georgia a lot. I like Georgia. I like Tennessee. I like that whole kind of region, like North Carolina, South Carolina. We can't even get any land in North Carolina and South Carolina because it's so competitive, but the days on market are so low over there. And honestly, we're doing a lot of business in California still, even though the news and whatever says that, everyone's leaving and all that. The market is super hot over there. Like Southern California, anywhere in California, honestly, is very, very strong. So like investors can keep reading the news. That's fine. I'm going to keep investing over there.
So in price points, I'm just curious, what is average price for in Southern California and then Georgia? Like how different is that world?
It used to actually be very similar. I would say that California has gone up a lot in the last 3 years, 2 years. It's honestly pretty relative now that I think about it. The prices are very similar. I would say a lot of the land though, we're not doing stuff like in downtown Los Angeles. We're talking about in the valley out there and stuff like that. But Georgia's got some very expensive land.
Some nice places in Georgia.
Yeah.
From a macro level, anything that scares you for your business, for land?
I would say, if interest rates continue to rise and consumer sentiment, goes down and we enter into a more serious recessionary environment, of course, that worries me. But, at the moment, everything, knock on wood, is going very well.
And then are there any hidden subsegments within land that people should know about? You don't say all your secrets, but
oh yeah,
there's different pockets, in multifamily it was first, then it was low-income housing, then self-storage, and things relative in the real estate world. What about land?
you could do mobile homes on land. Like you could do, there's timber on land, there's rare earth minerals on land, like there's mineral rights. Like you could buy mineral rights for properties and not even buy the land. You can do solar. Like we've had properties where we've had massive profits on random properties where a solar company called us. They're like, we need this piece of land. So that's like a subset of acquiring land for energy, billboards, cell towers. There's a million sub niches within land. That's also why I really like it too. There's owner finance, there's wholesaling, there's even subsets within that. It's unlimited.
So what excites you the most?
I'm like super excited about just big tracts of land. I really like it. It's super fun. I started getting into that in the last couple of years, and it's just a lot of fun.
Okay, so now let's talk about the real stuff, the war stories, the lessons. So walk us through a couple of crazy deals, like what that no one knows about. Like I have lots of them on the multifamily side and single family side. What about land? Like, do you find a bear anywhere? Like walk us through like any power lines out of nowhere, any restrictions, like walk us through crazy.
Oh yeah, I have some really good ones. I'll start with two. So the first one actually happened a month ago. So I've done thousands, like not hundreds, thousands, probably over 5,000 land transactions, and I've never had a serious problem with like fraud. We always catch the fraud before we close on the property. Like the title company catches it, right? Like a fake seller, or like they didn't actually own the property, stuff like that. So like it's never actually happened where it's been bad. So last month had a deal come through the pipeline. It was on the market with a real estate agent. We put it under contract. We closed on it. It was a very normal transaction in Florida.
You bought it.
We bought it, but it wasn't an off-market deal. This was literally on the MLS. We called the real estate agent and facilitated the deal, and we bought it. Very normal, reputable real estate agent, nothing out of the ordinary. A week later, we get a call from the title company, and they said, hey, we believe that there's fraud. This wasn't a real sale. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Take my money.
Yeah, it was about $150,000 transaction. We're like, what are you talking about? And they were like, well, the seller doesn't actually exist. And we're like, what do you mean the seller doesn't actually exist? So somehow this person found a random piece of land in Florida, then went to a real estate agent and somehow convinced them that they own the piece of land with fraudulent paper. And then we bought it. And then they fooled the title company. And then afterwards, the title company somehow caught it. And then it took over a month for us to get our money back. We finally got our money back. But the lesson here is always get title insurance. Always. Even if it's a $50,000, $30,000 piece of whatever, pay the $500 to $1,000 for the extra title insurance. So I couldn't believe that happened, but it literally happened. If it was an off-market deal, I wouldn't have been as surprised, but I was super surprised.
And did you pay for the insurance for that time?
Yeah. We got our money back. Full recourse.
Okay. Hit me with another one. So any other war stories or crazy deals? Not good. Give me that one first. Like any other war stories? Did anybody build anything crazy in the land?
Yeah. So in California, we have one person whose full-time job is to remedy properties, because we have thousands of properties, and if we get citations and we get
violations, warnings.
Yeah, exactly. And so California, we have from time to time, we get customers that decide that they're going to do like legit grow ops on our property.
Weed,
like straight up weed operations in the middle of the desert in California. It happens all the time. Oh yeah. Okay. That's a good story. So I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. I went to go make payroll. And I logged into Chase, and Chase was showing my balance as negative $999999999. And I'm like, the heck does that mean? I call our banker, and she's like, your account's frozen. I'm like, what do you mean my account's frozen? They're like, the San Bernardino County, California sheriff froze your bank account. I go, what are you talking about? So we couldn't make payroll. We couldn't get any money. I don't remember what I did, but all of our stuff was frozen, and Chase wouldn't give us any answers. And then I started calling around to the sheriff's office. The sheriff's like, this is an open investigation. We can't do anything. I go, you froze my bank account. And so what happened is I think there was a grow op operation on one of our properties, and the guy who was growing on there told the police that he was the owner of Discount Lots. And so we got in this big fight, and the police wouldn't like answer anything. And I think I had to get my attorney involved. And then like a day or two later, they unfroze our bank account, but someone basically pretended to be us on one of our properties doing illegal activities. And then they decided that they're going to freeze our bank accounts. And I don't think they had any legal right to freeze our bank accounts because we never got served, but that sucked.
And you just side quest, You guys are still the owners of the piece of land until it's paid off, right? So
yeah, but they sign agreements that they indemnify anything that happens on the property. They indemnify us if anything happens on the property.
But if I was to look at the property appraiser's records, right, it says discount lots LC 5 or whatever.
Yeah, but there's a lot of owner financing that happens out there, so the county knows how to work with companies.
Any other crazy?
Yeah, I got one more. I
want to hear the craziness that people don't realize, like any liens, valuations, like.
Yeah. So this was a good one. Another one in California. So yeah, maybe you don't want to do business in California. Like a year and a half or 2 years ago, I got served, like legit served with a lawsuit, and it said that me, Paul Herskovitz, was in California. I brought a construction crew with me, and I had a construction crew build a driveway through crazy lady's property, and that she had photos of it and all these things. We couldn't get this lady to drop the lawsuit. I hadn't even been in the state of California like for multiple calendar years. And then she's like, yeah, I identified you by going to the discount lots. We own the property next to her. And I think she realized that we had a lot of properties. And so she was like, all right, I'm going to go after these people. She was like nutso. I got her on the phone one time and talked to her. And I'm like, you realize like this is like completely made up. And so I ended up having to spend a lot of money in legal fees. I don't remember how much it costed. I mean, it was like in the tens of thousands of dollars for something that I had nothing to do with. And then she wanted to bring it to trial. And we were like, okay, show us your evidence. And then we pushed and pushed and pushed for evidence. She had zero evidence. And then she finally dropped the lawsuit. But that went on for like 6 months for it's totally made up.
And no one realizes that you got to defend yourself. If not, you go down fast. So you have to spend legal fees and time.
Yeah, I had to eat. I think it was like $40,000 or $50,000 in legal just to deal with something that was totally made up.
Fun stories.
Yeah.
How about on the good side, like on the upside? Any deals that you guys acquire, and a wind farm came out of nowhere?
Yeah, actually. So another story in California. When I first started the business, we used to buy these pieces of land, Kern County, California, which is in the middle of the desert, and we'd buy properties for like nothing. And so there was I don't remember the size of it, but we bought this property for like $2,000. I'm not even joking, maybe $3,000. And about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, this solar company calls us and they were like, are you the owners of this property? Yes, I'm the owner.
Is it a good conversation? Yes, I'm the owner.
Yeah. And then they're like, well, we want to buy it for, whatever solar company. And I said, they offered me like $20,000. I was like, no, thank you. And then they were like, okay, well, what's your price? So I made up a number. I said, the price is $250,000. I bought it for $2,000. They were like, no, like maybe we can give you $50,000. And I said, sorry, it's not for sale. They came back like a month later, and I think I got $220,000 for a piece of land that I bought for $2,000 in the middle of the desert in California. So that was a good one.
Amazing. What did they want to do with it? Do you know?
I think turbine.
So they needed the rest of the land, and you were in the middle. Awesome. Anything else? Any other fun stories like that?
I mean, we get not that big a number, but we get stuff like that every once in a while. Not that big of a rip, but that was one of my favorites.
If you could look back, I don't know if you guys did look back, but like, what's a crazy thing someone has built on like legally, right? After they buy it, is it always housing? Is it always like Airbnb? Like anything fun that somebody else has built?
I mean, we've gotten pictures of people that put like they'll make like a horse, like this lady had horses and she like put a fence in like a little mobile home and made like a little horse farm. That was nice. When we first started the business, there was a guy who I think he built like a dirt bike track on the land. I don't know, nothing too crazy that we know of, just a lot of violations.
Yes. Okay, so from the entrepreneur journey, looking back, if you were to start the company again, what would you have done differently? Because I imagine you've learned a lot. Your team's distributed. You were on the road. You have land all over the place. What would you have done differently to get to this point faster?
I think I would have done some sort of partnership with a fund or something like that right away. I would have given up equity in the business with a financial institution. This business is so capital intensive, and there's so little capital out there for this business. That's the hardest part about this business. And so I think starting over, I would have liked to have known how capital intensive this business is and found a really good partner and gone and done that first.
My joke of this conversation is people don't realize in real estate, if you don't have the money, you can't close on the deal.
Right.
If the money's not there, you don't just half-ass it. Like you need all the capital stack, either equity, debt, or seller financing or whatever. Set up. If not, you just can't do it. And people have the dream of real estate and they're like, oh, we're gonna do that. But if you don't have the money lined up, you just don't You don't pass go. You don't get started.
Yeah, I look at the business like this. Whoever has the most capital available to them wins.
Hard thing to solve. So what surprises you the most looking back at your specific industry, buying land all over the place, outside of the financing angle? Anything else, any lessons that you're like, that has been really eye-opening?
I would say that I think it's a pretty forgiving business. So like you can make some pretty good mistakes and still make money. I think you told me at one time when we were talking, you were like, you have high margins, right? I'm like, yeah. You were like, you have way more runway to screw up than I do. And I think that's why I've been successful, is because I have a lot more room to screw up.
So people who are going to screw up, new investors, what do you see the biggest mistake they make today trying to do what you're doing?
So I would definitely, anyone that's trying to get into the land business, I would not start with any sort of owner financing. I would say that was probably my biggest mistake, is not doing. I would have started in something that was more inbound cash to start, because it's so capital intensive. So I would, anyone trying to get into it, you need millions and millions and millions to build a real nice book of business for owner finance. Whereas if you're just going to flip lots and subdivide them and do all these other things, it's not as capital intensive, and you don't have like a long payment stream. So I think that would be like my biggest lesson and advice to someone is to do an aspect of the business that's not as capital intensive.
All right. Final question for me, which is getting out of college and not in Iowa, in a regular state, and you worked really hard for a couple of years and you put together $50K, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you wanted to get into real estate. Doesn't have to necessarily be land, but it could be. How would you invest that money? What would you do with your first $50K?
I would buy a piece of land.
Where would be creative? Where and how? How would you find it? All you got.
I would go on Zillow. Doesn't really matter to the state, but I would go on Zillow and I would talk to as many agents that specialize in land as possible and ask them to find me a piece of property that I could subdivide that is easy and the opportunities are out there, and just bang the phones and buy something on market.
Cool. Any questions you got for me? Flipping the switch?
Questions for you? No questions.
Perfect. Best answer. Dude, you're awesome. Appreciate the time. Thank you.